doing that at the Knights of Columbus Hall when she was like 82.
Well, that's going to be me.
Yeah, I have to just say that the thing that we learned from that was make sure there's no ice on the bar before you dance on it. Because that's how she'd have been fine if she hadn't slipped on a piece of ice. Otherwise, would have been the dance of the century by the octogenarian,
And again, someone who's up to doing that kind of stuff is probably going to heal the broken hip all right.
She actually did heal the broken hip all right. My grandmother was a phenomenal woman. She really was. But I wish I had been into Mead when she was still alive and when I had the opportunity to see her, because I would love to have introduced her to it. I think she'd have liked it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I fully think that Mead is what's going to keep me going into my 80s.
Certainly. Why not?
Honey's a preservative.
Absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
Already we are pickled.
Yeah, right?
You won't have to embalm us.
Yeah.
Pickle.
That's pretty funny. So now you guys have been open since 1992, so that puts you firmly in the first group or progenitors or whatever you want to call it for the early parts of the meat industry. Yeah.
I think there was about a dozen. I think we tried to look for our colleagues and located about a dozen in the U.S. when we started.
That's about right. There was maybe 15 or 20, and of course we didn't have much internet then, so it's hard to find people.
Right.
Yeah.
So exactly.
So that would also put you squarely in the times when people were adding acid up front and all that kind of stuff, right?
Sure. Well, yes.
Where did you get your mead making knowledge? Was it from the books available at the time, or just from experimenting, or how?
My husband is quite the Viking, and I don't even know. He is, mead winemakers are odd, beekeepers are odd, Vikings are kind of odd, and
so it's
he actually
odd factor there.
Seriously. And we do no sulfates, and at the time, that was just out there. So he actually insisted on figuring it out himself. I think there must have been some recipe books and things to go by, but he pretty much insisted on trying to figure it out himself. And then that was back in the day, oh my gosh. So Wine Lab, what has Wine Lab been bought by? Guzmer?
I think so.
You guys are on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And they're all slick and everything like that. Like when we dealt with Wine Lab, it was photocopied sheets of paper with stapled together.
Yeah.
Their catalog and their advice and their calc sheets. So, and their little drawings of microbes and things like that. So we did have the Wine Lab. Lisa, I think we did have the Wine Lab. It was around.
Well, now,
I think we utilized that a lot.
Well, and okay, Chico's Northern California, right?
Yes, and inland.
Inland, okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but the UC Davis school was up there, so there was like vast quantities of winemaking knowledge, even though it wasn't mead related still,
That's true. And we didn't, it felt like making a T-shirt at one point that said, no, I didn't go to Davis. But we had no Davis training either of us.
Very few meadery owners do, because what's the point? It's very expensive, and it was all, until recently, it was all about wine.
Yeah, and recently they've gotten into mead, huge. They have their honey center and honey and pollination and mead center now. So, like in the last 3 years, Davis has gotten into honey in a huge way. So,
yeah, they have. They really have, and I'm excited about that. I was at the first. I got to go to the first class they did. And it was really, it was a packed room, and it was just really, really neat because they were, the cool thing about it was, here is basically the holy grail of winemaking, and, a lot of us, not everybody, but a lot of us were going there going, wow, this is like really advanced and stuff, and, just kind of a little overawed by UC Davis. And what they represent in the fermentation industry, and it was really cool because the whole time they were asking us as many questions as we were asking them.
Yes, actually, yes. Throughout our
That was neat.
combined career, John and I, yes. Yeah, I call up to ask about a problem, a filtration problem, and you're right. They end up asking me 3 times the question that I asked them. Not UC Davis, just across the board.
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
try to deal with
Yeah.
How have
Good
you,
to educate everybody, though.
Well, yeah. That's what was cool about UC Davis was they were asking questions because they wanted to know. They wanted to learn and expand their knowledge so that they could offer, give better offerings to the industry and, create that process, that branch of classes that they're developing. So I thought it was really cool that they saw us as a resource and
resource. There you go.
yeah, and said, "Hey, what can you teach us that we can then go out and teach others?" And it was really neat.
how have you seen the business change over the years? I'm asking because in my short stay, it seems to me like over the last maybe 5 years, mead has gotten exponentially more popular. Is that?
Oh yeah, mead has just exploded in the last 5 years. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, it really has.
Maybe we have the millennials and the hipsters to thank for that. I don't know.
Yeah, revile hipsters as you will. They did take to it like ducks to water. You can't complain about that. Their money spent as good as anybody else's,
That's for sure.
That's true. That's true. I saw it when PBS had their Vikings. When PBS started that show on Vikings titled Vikings, and Game of Thrones started making the movies.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people would walk into our winery in our tasting room and say, "Which one do you have that they serve on Game of Thrones?"
Like
so
you're
there was
the only
no
meadery.
question. Well, there's no question where the interest was coming from, and it was right at that time that I would go to a wine tasting, and instead of me having to go, "It's mead," no, that's with a D on the end. It means honey wine.
It's not meat.
But it was the first time that people came up to me and to us, our table, and would say, "Honey, do you mean it's mead?" I'm like, "Yes." The table turned. It's when the TV, there were like 3, the Game of Thrones and that Vikings show.
Yeah. Game of
Uh,
Thrones, the Viking TV series, and before that, the one that really kind of kicked it all off was 13th Warrior.
Okay. Is that
Yeah,
how
that's true.
That was
Another
back
one.
a ways, but yeah, there's another show that
Yeah, let's not forget World of Warcraft.
well, and yeah, that didn't
That
hurt
could-
either.
Yeah, and Lord of the Rings Online.
And Lord of the Rings Online, yeah.
Sorry, Geeks showing again.
Well, and the Lord of the Rings movies as well.
That's true.
Yeah.
Although I don't remember if they explicitly mentioned mead in the movies.
They didn't, but
I know they
people
did in the books.
people
but
were quaffing out of horns and things, and people just made the, connection. So,
connection good?
Yeah.
yeah, it's like there's drinking horns. They must be full of mead. It's like, well, they could equally likely be full of beer, but okay.
Oh.
Whatever. That works for me. I'll go with that.
And in the same time frame, we saw the drinking horns online. We stocked them in the front room in our sales room too, and sold we sold a dozen of them. And that has actually tapered off.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cute. It was right in there with the popularity of those shows, and people would seriously say, "Oh, this is like," instead of they used to say, "Is this like Chaucer?" Not Chaucer's mead, but is this like Beowulf and all that stuff from
yeah.
literature? And now they would say, "Hey, I want the Game of Thrones stuff."
Well, that would be this one right here. Are you sure? Definitely.
Exactly.
Absolutely, yeah. Did you
Got a
guys...
crazy Viking on the front.
I know, right? Since you guys have been out there for a while, I know some of the momentum from Mead, for Mead, happened as a result of Renaissance festivals. And I was a big Renaissance fair goer, and I've been a vendor, and I've been in cast and all of that. Did you guys hook up with like Northern Cal, the Ren fairs up there? There's the big ones up there. I forget where it is now.
I know, it moves around. It used to be in Novato.
That's the one, the Novato show, yeah. But they lost the land there, I remember, a while back.
Yeah. It was not as big of a thing. I didn't pursue that as much as I should have. And it always seemed like there was an extra step as far as I didn't want to go be the concessioner, have a booth. I didn't want to have that extra work to put in. Mm-hmm. And so there definitely were several. There was one in Squaw Valley. There's one in Sacramento. There were definitely, I want to say like booths or whatever, concessioners, people that would contact us and say, okay, send us a bottle, we want to compare it. We want to, send us your pricing, send us a bottle, we want to compare it. So, yeah, there were several festivals that picked us, but we didn't go pursue it hardly as much as I should have.
Well, I mean, there's good and there's bad. There's good because there's a lot of awareness at a Ren Fair because, these people kind of live in that place and, having been there myself, I can attest to that. But the downside is that, and I don't know if this is true for all fairs, but certainly a lot of the bigger ones, there was not a lot of profit in it for the meaderies. It was really more of a get your name out there kind of thing because they bought it at such a low price. And sad to say, Chaucer's, because they're huge, were undercutting everybody. Because my local fair here in North Carolina, down in Charlotte, about 3 hours from me, they have this show, and then they also have a sister show in Arizona outside Phoenix. And their main mead was Chaucer's. And I talked to a couple of local people about, well, what if you got in there? And they went and inquired and found out that Chaucer's was undercutting prices so far that the little guys couldn't afford to be there. They'd lose money.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so, it was a case of, because Chaucer's had the market penetration. I mean, they were everywhere. Well, as everywhere mead ever gets, But, they were in a lot of places that still there are not necessarily meads.
And yeah. They still are the one that almost everyone knows.
Yeah. Well, and we have to give them much credit for that. That they made Mead a word other than Mead, Mead Washington and Lake Mead, like that. They made it a thing, outside of books, which I really appreciate them having done that. But yeah, they're a hard row to hoe if you're a little guy coming up after, trying to get into that business and the price points that they're setting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you're making about where they're using mass market technology to make huge batches, probably Chinese honey. Who knows?
No, they're not using Chinese honey, but they've got the marketing. Yeah, big company behind them. It's not just Chaucer's. Chaucer's is part of the Bargetto winery system, and the Bargettos are heavily involved even with UC Davis. I mean, they've got their fingers everywhere. They're, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like trying to sell cola and going up against Coke.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. It's like being Cheerwine,
Do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Being Cheerwine.
Yeah. Manny gets the reference. Probably nobody else will, but it's a regional cola made in North Carolina, and if you're more than 3 states away, nobody's ever heard of it.
Nope.
Yeah, and more than
so,
three,
more than 3
states
here.
Away to the south. Okay, you go north, nobody's ever heard of it. You go west, nobody's ever heard of it. So yeah, it's very, very regional. But in their market, they've done very well. So. No, I was kind of curious because, as Manny had mentioned earlier, you guys have been in it since back in the days when, at least for the home mead makers, it was the pitch and wait days. So what kind of changes have you guys seen over the years in how you make mead?
In how we make mead?
Yeah, like your techniques, not necessarily the equipment, because I know that just gets bigger and bigger, but the techniques that you're using and, what have you let go of over the years that didn't serve you or wasn't working for you or that you just found better ways?
I have a strange answer for that.
Those are the fun ones.
I feel like in the last 6 or 7 years, every time I think I'm going to try